tonight on First at 9 this Monday, the 4th of August 2025. Conflicting figures. Minister of Tourism claims Sri Lanka earned $3.7 billion from tourism in the first 7 months of the year. However, the Deputy Minister counters that the real figure for the first 6 months is only $1.7 billion, citing the latest data. Counting vessels. After more than a decade, the Ministry of Fisheries launches a nationwide census of fishing vessels. Real education. University facilities remain unimproved despite the increase in student enrollments. The quality of university education is still lacking, says the Prime Minister. Dismissed. Supreme Court dismisses 2 petitions challenging 7 recent MOUs between Sri Lanka and India.
Men, Balyak.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. In your top story this evening, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuri highlights that although the university system has experienced a swift expansion, its facilities have not improved at a comparable rate. Speaking at a recent meeting in Jaffna, the Premier further stated that state universities should not only seek to increase their enrollments but also academic excellence.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuri met with the Vice-Chancellor, academic and non-academic staff and undergraduates of the University of Jaffna yesterday. During discussions, the Prime Minister's attention was drawn to the university's amenities, including hostel facilities, water, electricity and other facilities for students.
We feel that the university system has expanded very fast in terms of taking in student numbers, but not kept the facilities, whether for the academics or for students. So as a result, both faculty and students are under tremendous pressure. And there are real questions about the quality of the programs that we are delivering. At the end of the day, when our graduates go out from the university, they must be equipped to deal with society in their professional lives in every way. But I think the huge pressures on the universities during the last year to keep expanding, and not only expanding, to start earning funds, withdrawing funds also at the same time, right? Withdrawing funds, more recruitment, and expecting the universities to start earning their own funds. And as a result, this has resulted in a real, I think, crisis in terms of quality. So our intention as a government is to really ask you to go back to the origins of what a university should be. It is not just numbers we are looking for. It's academic excellence. Now, after 75 years of our independence, our universities should be at a different level, not just focusing on undergraduates, but also becoming centers of research. For this, we need to then also think about our postgraduate education. And as you very well know, postgraduate education in our country right now is just a means of earning money. That is, in a university, we need all of these things. So this is my appeal to you to really think about enhancing the quality of what we deliver and really making our universities ready for the next decades.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
The National Fishing Vessel Census, which is being conducted with the aim of creating an updated database on fishing vessels operating on the country's coastline, began today. The census, which will be conducted island-wide until the 20th of March, starting today.
This fishing vessel census covering the entire island is being conducted for the first time in approximately 10 years. This initiative is being implemented under the Clean Sri Lanka initiative in collaboration with the Ministry of Fisheries. The Ministry of Fisheries, Aquatic and Marine Resources has emphasized that the updated database will be instrumental for the sector. It has been decided that operating licenses will not be renewed for vessels that fail to participate in the census. The Fisheries Department has called on the fishing community to submit all OFRP or outboard motorized one-day fiberglass fishing vessels and MTRB or motorized traditional fishing vessels for registration during the census. The first phase of this 4-phase program began this morning at the Panudara Fisheries Harbour, led by Fisheries Minister Ramalingam Chandrasekhar and Deputy Minister Ratna Gamage. Since such a census has not been conducted in the last 10 years, there are many unknowns, including the number of boats, the number of capacity of engines, the condition of damaged vehicles and the environmental impact of these boats on marine resources. Therefore, after conducting this survey from today until August 20th, we will be able to make informed decisions based on the data collected. We urge fishing communities to cooperate fully with our officials and support this important initiative.
The suspension of services initiated by private bus services operating from Gampaha to Colombo and several other destinations today was called off this evening. The suspension of services was in protest of police restrictions preventing buses from halting at designated points within the city of Gampaha. Operators claimed that this has created an unfair advantage for long-distance service buses. Subsequently, buses in routes connecting Gampaha to Colombo, Kaduwela, Pugoda, Yagoda and Kirindiwala initiated the strike action with around 150 vehicles reportedly withdrawing from operation. In response to the significant inconvenience caused as a result, the Sri Lanka Transport Board deployed additional buses to mitigate the disruption. Meanwhile, officials from the Road Passenger Transport Authority held talks with private bus drivers, clarifying that the new regulations were intended to bring order, not to discriminate against them. The first Randoli procession of the Kandy Asala Perahara toured the streets at the auspicious time of 6:52 p.m. this evening. The Sri Dalada Perahara of the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy commenced on July 30th with the first Kumbal Perahara parading the streets. The Kumbal procession was held for 5 days until the 3rd of August and the final Kumbal procession toured the streets from 6:43 p.m. last night. The Kandy Asala festival is set to conclude with the final Randoli procession on the 8th of August, followed by the water carting ceremony and the day procession on the 9th. The Criminal Investigation Department today recorded a statement from Sandra Pereira, a former private secretary to former President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The statement was part of an ongoing investigation into the foreign trips undertaken by Wickremesinghe using the financial resources of the Presidential Secretariat during his presidency. The CID informed the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court on June 24th that it had initiated an inquiry into the foreign trips made by the former president. Following a notice to appear, Sandra Pereira arrived at the CID to provide her statement. Meanwhile, former Presidential Secretary Saman Ekanayake is scheduled to appear at the CID tomorrow to record a statement in connection with the same investigation. Leader of the Pivituruhela Urume, Udega Mampila today alleged that cabinet approval for the Keravalapitiya Sahasdanavi power plant project was secured through the submission of inaccurate and misleading data. Speaking to media following a discussion with opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, Gamampila disclosed that the country would incur a loss of 2.19 trillion rupees if the project in question continues.
Members of the Anti-Corruption Energy Coalition met with opposition leader Sajith Premadasa today to raise concern regarding the Keravalapitiya-based Sahasdanavi power plant project, which recently received cabinet approval.
The
Sahasdanavi power plant is shaping up to be one of the biggest scams in our country's history. Based on our analysis, this project could end up costing the economy nearly 2.9 billion rupees. We requested that the opposition leader take this issue up in Parliament and intervene to implement required measures to put an end to this. The Samagi Jana Balavege and the SJB-led Samagi Jana Sandhane, together with other political parties in the opposition, held talks pertaining to the matter. Subsequently, we intend to initiate actions within democratic guidelines to prevent any adverse effects for the country. We request that the government take action to stop this disaster.
කටයුතු කරන්නේ.
ස්වාභාවික ගෑස් විදුලි බලාගාරයක්වයි හඳුන්වමින්
On the 31st of January, the Cabinet approved the establishment of what's presented as a 350 megawatt combined cycle power plant. But in reality, it's just a diesel plant in disguise. The proposal was based on false numbers. It said diesel was 110 rupees per litre, when in fact it was 286 in January. It quoted the exchange rate as 195 rupees when the real rate was closer to 300. Because of that, they claimed the electricity cost per unit would only be 20 rupees and 15 cents, but the actual figure is 72 rupees and 11 cents. If this project goes ahead, the total loss could reach 2.19 trillion rupees.
In response to these concerns, CEB spokesperson Dhammika Wimalaratne clarified that the Sahasthanavi power plant, along with other similar facilities, will transition from diesel to entirely regasified, liquefied natural gas by 2028. According to the CEB, this conversion is expected to halve the plant's fuel costs. Moreover, once upgraded to operate as a combined cycle power plant using RLNG, Sahasthanavi's electricity generation cost is projected to drop to approximately 37 rupees per unit.
The Supreme Court today dismissed 2 fundamental rights petitions without examination, which sought to annul 7 recent memoranda of understanding signed between the governments of Sri Lanka and India. The order was issued by a bench comprising Justices Achala Vengapuli and Priyantha Fernando. The petitions were filed by a group including President of the Patriotic National Movement Dr. Gunadasa Amarasekara. Respondents included the Attorney General, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya and the Cabinet of Ministers. The petitioners argued that the MOUs violated Sri Lanka's constitution and international law, claiming the public was not informed of their contents, thus breaching constitutional rights. They also state the agreements undermine national sovereignty and were signed without parliamentary approval, which they say is unlawful. The group requested the court to recognize a violation of their fundamental rights, issue an interim injunction to halt the agreement's implementation and award 2 million rupees in compensation. The Department of Meteorology warns that thunder showers accompanied by severe lightning are likely to occur at several places in the northern, north central and eastern provinces. The department also warns that there may be temporarily localized strong winds during thunder showers and requests the public to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by lightning. The Met Department further states that several spells of showers will occur in the western and Sabaragamu provinces and in the Gol, Matara, Kandy, Nuwara districts. Fairly heavy falls above 50 millimeters are likely at some places in the Uva province and in the Ampara and Batticaloa districts. With that, here's a look at more local news in brief.
Chief Inspector Linton Silva, officer in charge of the Western Province North Crime Division, has received a threatening phone call allegedly from underworld kingpin Kehel Baddara Padme. The call was received following the arrest of a suspect known as Gambhadeva, reportedly a close associate of Padme at Kadunayake Airport yesterday. Meanwhile, parliamentarian Chamara Sampath Dasanayaka appeared before the Bribery Commission this morning to lodge a complaint regarding an alleged irregularity in the recruitment of police inspectors in 2024. In other local news, the case filed under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act against Yoshitha Rajapaksa, son of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, and his maternal grandaunt Daisy Forrest, was taken up in court today. Although the defendants were present, the Colombo High Court ordered the case to be postponed to October 29 as the presiding judge Pradeep Aberatna is currently on leave.
Welcome back. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism Vijitha Herath claimed that Sri Lanka's tourism industry generated $3.7 billion in revenue during the first 7 months of this year. However, Deputy Minister of Tourism Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe, citing data from the Central Bank, clarified that tourism earnings for the first 6 months amount to only $1.7 billion and that it is unlikely that the country earned enough revenue in July to have reached the $3.7 billion mark, as suggested by Minister Herath.
In July alone, Sri Lanka welcomed 200,244 tourists, including 37,128 visitors from India, 23,475 from the United Kingdom, and 15,556 from the Netherlands. According to data from the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the total number of tourists who visited the island during the first 7 months of this year is 1,368,288. Minister of Tourism Vijitha Herath, speaking at a ceremony held in the Sita Amman Kovil, stated that the tourism industry generated $3.7 billion in revenue during this period.
As you all know, our country faced a severe economic crisis. To recover from this, we must rapidly develop the tourism sector. So far this year, 1.3 million tourists have visited Sri Lanka, with the majority coming from India. Over the past 7 months, we have earned $3.7 billion in revenue from tourism. This year, we expect to welcome 3 million tourists. We have set this as our goal and are actively organizing major initiatives to achieve it.
However, according to central bank data, tourism earnings for the first 6 months of this year are recorded at $1.7 billion. Accordingly, journalists questioned Deputy Minister of Tourism, Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe, regarding this inconsistency at a press conference this afternoon.
විජිත හේරත් ඇමතුමා කියනවා මේ වසර මුල් මාස 7 සංචාරක වීම ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් 3.7ක් කියලා. හැබැයි මහ බැංකු වාර්තාව අපි ගත්තම ඒ දත්වලට අනුව මුල් මාස 6 තුල සංචාරක වීම වාර්තා වෙන්නේ ඩොලර් බිලියන 1.7ක්. මොකද්ද මේ වෙනස? ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ දත්වලට අනුව
According to data, by the end of June, tourism revenue stands at $1.7 billion. That's the accurate figure up to June. July's data hasn't been included in the report, so there's a big gap between that and what the minister claimed. My opinion is that we might not have generated so much revenue in the month of July.
Singer PLC has been appointed the official distributor for Starlink satellite internet equipment in Sri Lanka. The announcement was confirmed via the official Facebook pages of both Singer and Starlink Sri Lanka. Backed by Haley's PLC and entrepreneur Dhammika Pereira, Singer will now offer Starlink's high-speed satellite internet powered by Elon Musk's low Earth orbit satellite network, bringing reliable connectivity even to the country's most remote areas. The Colombo Stock Exchange reached a historic milestone today as the all share price index surpassed the 20,000 mark for the first time during morning trading. However, the bourse closed in negative territory after the ASPI lost 0.64% by the close of trading. The ASPI closed 19,786.23 points. The more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 decreased 0.63% to close at 5,857.61. Market turnover crossed 4.5 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 82 million rupees. Analyst at Capital Alliance, Rashan Samarakon, joins us now with a few thoughts to round off our Markets in View segment for the week.
The domestic stock market rose throughout the previous. The S&P SL 20 rose 2.08% from 5,775 to 5,895, while the ASPI rose 2.03% from 19,518 to 19,914. In addition to the index performance, market turnover increased by 19.47% to 7.367 billion rupees. Furthermore, the government raised 66.128 billion rupees last week through treasury bill auctions, where yields remain unchanged for 3, 6 and 12-month bills. The ASPI briefly breached the 20,000 mark today before pulling back. However, we expect it to consolidate above the 20,000 level over the course of the week, supported by earnings-backed market momentum.
With that, let's take a look at the day's foreign exchange rates. In international economic developments, China's independent oil companies are ramping up investment in Iraq, pouring billions into OPEC's second largest producer, just as other major global firms are beginning to pull back. Attracted by better contract terms, firms like Geojade, United Energy, Zhongman and Anton Oilfield aim to double their output to 500,000 barrels per day by 2030. These privately run companies, often led by veterans of China's state oil giants, see Iraq as a chance to grow abroad amid limited opportunities at home. Their rise marks a shift for Iraq, which seeks foreign investment to boost production to over 6 million BPD by 2029, while balancing Beijing's growing influence in its oil sector. That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.